miles capability, and they were limited to only 500 miles.
McGinnis says that leaves the larger Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty, or START, which expires in 2021.
That has to involve the Chinese. Our own Strategic Command made it clear that they've been doubling down on the production of nuclear weapons over the last decade. So these are issues of some gravity.
And McGinnis is pleased the Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is taking this issue seriously. I'm Chad Groening.
And stocks plummeted on Wall Street as investors worry how much damage will result to the global economy as a trade war between the U.S. and China continues to escalate. The Dow ended 760 points lower, the Nasdaq 278 points, the S&P 87. Find more news at onenewsnow.com.
Have you been looking for a way to serve others? Are you able to serve in a ministry without being paid? You and Friendships might be the perfect match. Friendships is currently taking applications for volunteers providing aid to disaster victims, refugees, and the impoverished, both here at home and around the world. Get more information at friendships.org or by calling 337-433-5022.
Darkness is not an affirmative force. It simply reoccupies the space vacated by the light.
This is the Hamilton Corner on American Family Radio.
It should be uncomfortable for a believer to live as a hypocrite.
Delivering people out of the bondage of mainstream media and the philosophies of this world.
God has called you and me to be his ambassadors, even in this dark moment. Let's not miss our moment.
And now, the Hamilton Corner.
Good evening. Welcome to the Hamilton Corner here on American Family Radio. I'm your host, Abraham Hamilton III, and I'm joined by the full J-Squared contingent. Mr. Jeff Reed is to my left, who is celebrating an anniversary. Happy anniversary to Jeff and the Mrs. Reed. Mr. Jason Tross is to my right, and Marty Sparks is lighting up the dark again from the screening room. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another program. As most of you are making your way from your part-time jobs to your full-time jobs, I would encourage you to make that transition from that part-time work, you know, what you do outside of your home, most of us, to generate an income for our families. I refer to that as part-time work because your full-time job is what you do that doesn't include clock punching. I know most people don't punch clocks today, but a lot of people still do. But full-time work, man. Don't allow the world to capture your attention to such a degree to where you're only able to offer your families the leftover from a day busied and well spent. But to recognize that God created the family as the first institution to be a conduit and then the recipients of his delegated authority to execute the king's dominion in the earth. And the critical core, the most critical core to understanding the ministry of family is marriage. You know, I remind my children, y'all know mom comes before you. Because my wife comes before my children. Of course, y'all know I love my children. Hey, love the kids. But wife comes first. And so let us, fellas, ladies, let us understand that marriage is ministry and treat it that way. And to that end, this weekend, you know, I wasn't plugged in to the news. I try to unplug from time to time because, you know, I do this on a daily basis. And I was in birthday party mood this weekend. We were doing the birthday party thing. So I wasn't following the news too much. And a friend of mine brought to my attention the tragedies of over the weekend. And so it is with a heavy heart that I come to you today with this program. Some of you probably could notice it. I wasn't as chipper in the beginning as I normally am. The president issued a directive at all federal buildings where flags are being flown at half-staff in light of the mass shootings in El Paso, Texas, and in Dayton, Ohio. And, you know, if you've been paying attention to stuff for any length of time, you knew what was coming. You know, I knew it was coming. The predictable advocacy for gun control and all of that kind of stuff. And man, I'm just I'm sick of that kind of talk. But before I go too far, let's go to the Word of God. And one verse immediately came to my mind when I was first confronted with this news late this weekend of what all transpired. And I'm going to get into some more of that in the second segment and third segment as well. But I want to refocus our attention here for a moment. And one verse came to my mind from Matthew chapter 24, verse 12. And the verse said this, "And because lawlessness is increased, the love of many shall wax cold." Because lawlessness is increased, the love of many is wax cold. And my immediate reaction in my heart was first, man, I wonder if these people were believers. And I cannot, that is always my first thought. How many of these people were Christ followers? That was my first thought. In Texas, in Ohio, how many of them? How many of them? And another thought that I had is, I guess because it's not politically expedient, but you have mass murders in Chicago seemingly almost every weekend. A mass amount of people were killed. But you don't see much of that covered, These are thoughts. My hometown, New Orleans, the murder rate in my hometown is higher than Baltimore per capita right now. And I've talked before about not being susceptible to the media's manipulation. But coming back to the scripture that I mentioned, when lawlessness increases, the love of man waxes cold, man. So now here we stand in the year 2019, in the year of our Lord 2019, where we've had a generation that has been force-fed that they're nothing but animals through their miseducation systems. A generation has been force-fed that they're nothing but animals. There's nothing unique or sacred about human life. I mean, we're just a feature of a cosmic accident. The next component of this antichrist faith being force-fed upon our society is that because human beings are nothing other than animals, feature of a cosmic accident, the next component that your life has no purpose, no meaning. Life is utterly meaningless. That is what our society has force-fed a generation. Life has no purpose. Life has no meaning. You're just an animal. You're an animal. You're a cosmic accident. Then we support that the antichrist theological teaching by enshrining in law and paying with taxpayer dollars for the right to kill a baby animal in the womb. It's just a baby. It's just an animal anyway, right? We have marches. You have women descending upon Washington, D.C. wearing anatomical hats, primarily for the right, to murder these little animals. And then society wants to gasp collectively when we have tragedies like we've had over the weekend. And I'm saying, now which one doesn't fit? Now you've taught an entire generation that they're animals. You've taught an entire generation they're cosmic accidents. You've taught an entire generation that there's no purpose, no meaning for their lives. We have a society that's hopped up on pills, on drugs. People are languishing under the idea that their lives are meaningless. But then society wants to act. And hear me when I say the act. Now, I don't mean the individuals and the families and people in the relationships, because I know that their grief is real. But do you really believe that these people, like Cory Booker, for example, Dude, fake it in a $2 bill. You think he really cares about what's going on? They don't care. That's why they immediately run to their predictable political talking points. And I'm saying that if we have a society that truly cares about the termination of innocent human life, we have to grapple with the fact that we probably should stop telling people they're just animals and then want to be surprised when they act like animals. You know, you kick God out of a society. You know, the God who says, you know, you were made in my image. Male and female, you were made in my image. That life is precious because you're made in my image. You reject him. Expel him from society. Yet want to complain when people act like animals. Listen, we can't have it both ways. You know, the people that are kicking this gun control foolishness, man, you know, look, miss me with all of that jazz. Miss me with all of that. Everybody knows that for the first, we'll say 150 years, at a minimum 125 years of America's history, there are guns everywhere. Many of you listening to me right now, you remember driving to school with shotguns in the back of your pickup trucks, going to high school, schools having marksmanship classes at the schools. But you want to tell me it's the guns? It's not the guns, man. This is what happens when a nation has rejected the Lord. Lawlessness increases, the love of man waxes cold. Now, I know that might not be highfalutin enough for some of y'all. Some of you guys want, you know, a $50 million psychoanalysis. You know, you want to talk about the intricacies of, you know, all of these other things. You want to add an additional, you know, extensive commentary on mental health, which I do think is real, but I think it's overblown in many instances. You want to reject God? This is what happens to a society. And you have people saying, well, we don't have the type of violence in other countries that you have in America. They may not have access to guns, but you're going to act like we don't know in Europe they're using trucks to roll people over, that stabbing deaths are at endemic levels in Europe. Man, come on. Man's heart is so wicked, you take the guns away from him, guess what he's going to use? Whatever he can get his hands on. Guns are not running around here pulling their own triggers. Look, you can try to sidestep the reality if you want, but the more you tell a society that they're nothing more than animals, the more the society is going to act like animals. They're going to act like it in their sexual ethics. They're going to act like it in killing other people. They're going to act like it in the way they treat other people. They're going to act like it the way they talk to other people. So stop playing with all of this. Oh, we need to do something. Thoughts and prayers are not accomplishing it. Because y'all don't really care. You don't really care, because if you did care, you wouldn't have as much of a difficult time with people like me coming to your school and saying, hey, you know what? There's a thing, Genesis 1, chapter 1, verses 26 and 27, that everybody in this building is made in the likeness and image of God. And in fact, we should begin our days with recognizing the Almighty Creator. Because the further or the more we're invoking the Almighty Creator of heaven and earth into our conversations, the more we have a higher esteem and regard for one another. The more we have regard for one another. People want to say poverty is what produces criminals. Okay, you can kick that jazz if you want. But I have grandfathers and great-grandfathers that were no less poor than other people. They weren't killing each other. So you can't say it's always poverty. Now, poverty within the context where society has rejected the knowledge of God, oh yeah. Poverty within the context where people have been told they're animals. Like, listen, let's just be real. Let's just be real. Chelsea Clinton went on national TV and praised Margaret Sanger and the right to kill babies in the womb. Why? Because it increased the ability for women to make money. Well, Chelsea, if we're going to praise that, why do you have a problem with Boo Boo and Ray Ray on the corner knocking people's heads off because they realize if you're alive, you're a risk to my business practices? Man, come on. You're going to tell young girls in our country that they can kill other people for convenience, yet you want to wax as if like you're concerned when other people are killing other people because they feel like these other people are hindrances to their objectives? We can't have it both ways, folks. We can't have it both ways. You can't have it both ways. When there's an increase of lawlessness rejecting the knowledge of God, the love of man waxes cold. You've reduced what God says has been created in the likeness, in my image. You've completely eradicated from popular discourse. Anybody who believes that, you consider them to be a backwards dunce. Yet you want people to value human life. Man, go ahead and sit down somewhere. This is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So I'm saying, okay, do y'all really want to deal with this? Do we really want to deal with this? If so, we need to reverse the overdose our society has in telling people that they're just animals. And take this thing, I know you might think it's an archaic, this is an old, dusty text. And remind people, thus said the Lord. I know that makes people uncomfortable. Thus said the Lord. The reason why your life has value is because you have the imprint of the Almighty God on your life. But people don't want to have those conversations, because if you do, that means the imprint of the Almighty God will have application and implications for every other area of life. So don't tell me you care about what's going on in our country when you continue to reject the God of the Bible.
A chilling report regarding censorship. I am Matt Staver with Freedom's Call. President Trump's recent social media summit was mocked by some of the big media. The summit gathered conservative experts to expose some deep media bias. The Silicon censors include but are not limited to Google, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and more. These social media titans suppress and censor pro-life and pro-family speech online. And recently, solid evidence emerged. And the source of the proof came from someone who is not a conservative at all. His name is Dr. Robert Epstein, a renowned research psychologist who testified about Google's threat to democracy. And what he shared will make your hair stand up. Google's biased search results likely impacted undecided voters. Get this, it's estimated that Google swayed between 2.6 million and 10.4 million undecided votes for Hillary Clinton. Their survival of liberty is at stake. Join me in telling Congress to protect our freedom. Stay informed at lc.org.
Hey, want to go shopping later?
Yeah, sure. Where you want to go?
Oh, we can go to JCPenney's, Belk, Target.
Whoa, wait. I was with you until you said Target.
What's wrong with Target?
What's wrong with Target? You mean besides the fact that they have an open door policy that lets men into women's restrooms, that Target?
Wait, what?
Exactly. As a matter of fact, before we go, grab your laptop, go to afa.net, and sign the pledge to boycott Target.
Okay, I'm on it.
International, interdenominational, Wesley Biblical Seminary, Jackson, Mississippi. Now's the time for you to apply at WBS, Biblical and Theological Studies, with a deep commitment to the authority of Scripture. Our online and on-campus graduate programs will give you the laser-like focus for ministry that you need. Wesley Biblical Seminary. Apply today. Preach the Word, reach the world. WBS.edu.
Brian Fisher here with today's Life and Liberty Minute. Everybody is clamoring to see President Trump's tax returns, especially Congress and the state of New York. The problem is that according to the Constitution, nobody has a right to see them. The Fourth Amendment says the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, and papers shall not be violated. Well, Donald Trump is a person, so this right belongs to him, and tax returns are papers, so this right applies to them. The only exception is if a warrant is issued based on testimony obtained under oath that his returns are evidence of a crime. But no one is alleging that the president has committed a specific crime. In other words, this is just a giant fishing expedition. Well, the Constitution allows for a lot of things, but fishing expeditions are not among them. It's time for everybody to leave the president and his tax returns alone.
Catch Brian Fisher on Focal Point, weekday afternoons at 105 Central on American Family Radio.
Shining light into the darkness, this is the Hamilton Corner on American Family Radio.
My fellow Americans, this morning, our nation is overcome with shock, horror, and sorrow. This weekend, more than 80 people were killed or wounded in two evil attacks. One Saturday morning in El Paso, Texas, a wicked man went to a Walmart store where families were shopping with their loved ones. He shot and murdered 20 people and injured 26 others, including precious little children. Then, in the early hours of Sunday morning, Dayton, Ohio, another twisted monster opened fire on a crowded downtown street. He murdered 9 people, including his own sister, and injured 27 others. The First Lady and I join all Americans in praying and grieving for the victims, their families, and the survivors. We will stand by their side forever. We will never forget.
Welcome back to the Hamilton Corner here on American Family Radio. That was President Trump earlier today issuing a statement concerning the tragedies, man, in El Paso, Texas, and Dayton, Ohio. And the president, I thought, hit the right note in his remarks. And what I was saying in the first segment, and we know what it is, the reason why people don't want to deal with the fact that the elimination of God from our society results in, guess what? A godless society where men no longer have any regard for the value of human life. You know, and in fact, if you dare begin to say, you know what? Every human being is made in the image of God, and as a result has inherent value, not based on what they do, but based on being made in the image of God. Then the society says, oh no, you're trying to crush a woman's right to choose. It's false, man. It's false. And so the president hit the right tone, I believe, in his remarks in that regard. And so most of the attention, and I'm going to try to take these one at a time, because I deplore how the deaths of people are used so repeatedly as political trampolines to springboard from. I think that in and of itself is further evidence of the love of many waxing cold. You know, it's terrible. And so first I'll start with this, the tragedy in El Paso, and that attracted the majority of the attention, and I'm going to get into why I believe that is the case over the weekend. You know, and I think, you know, a lot of people want to bring in the mental health thing, you know, and if you listen to the program, you know, I don't ever say the names of these murderers, because I believe they do. A part of the reason why they do what they do is for the attention that follows. In this particular instance, the murderer in Texas wrote a manifesto. A purported manifesto was posted that supposedly was written by the shooter. And in it, I read the whole thing. In it, he talks about people reacting to his actions, you know. And so I am extremely reluctant to refer to the names of these people and even their manifestos for the very reason of not giving them what they're actually seeking to accomplish in many instances. But in digging into, and I'm going to refer to it for a specific purpose during this program, digging into the manifesto, it's obvious that the guy was a white supremacist, you know? And I don't know what the right word is there. I wasn't surprised. But I was put off by the unwillingness of some people to discuss the guy's motivation, you know? And when you have attacks, one of the things I, for one, consistently decry on this program and in my personal life is we have Muslim terrorists that kill people because of their Islamic supremacist ideology. I'm saying I'm disgusted by the fact that the media tries literally to bend over backwards to prevent from highlighting the ideology. I'm saying that if you want to stop the stuff, why not talk about what caused the people to do the murdering? Like, that's not rocket science. Even it's not real life, but even in the movies and the television shows, Law and Order and all of that, they talk about the motive of the criminals. But when Islamic terrorism, the media tries its best. Oh, well, don't want to say it's terrorism. Don't want to identify the ideology. And then similarly, if you have a dude killing people because he don't like where they came from, because he's a guy that has less melanin, lower melanin content, is a lighter skinned person, is wanting to preserve America for lighter skinned people, guess what you call that? Another supremacist ideology. And so if you have a person who is killing people to advance their political agendas, what do we call that, folks? Terrorism. That shouldn't be hard to say or to do. This is crazy. And then I saw a CNN report, and I'm going to read to you. I normally don't do this, but I'm going to do this for this purpose. I saw a CNN report where they quote from the manifesto. They allude to him being a white supremacist, and then they read this. And before they read it, they said, and the shooter, they said his name. He wrote in his manifesto. So the next logical step is to decrease the number of people in America using resources. If we can get rid of enough people, then our way of life can become more sustainable. And clearly, when he said get rid of people, now the commentator in CNN kicks up again. Clearly, when he said get rid of people, he's talking about immigrants. And so, when I heard that, my Abe Spidey senses were tingling. And I said, man, I don't trust these people. So I got the manifesto myself, and I read the whole thing. And, you're either ignorant or you're evil. There's no middle ground. If they're quoting from the manifesto, that means somebody had to read it, right? And if you read it, it ain't that long. It ain't like you're reading, a Shakespeare or a novel or something. You guys have millions of people paying millions of dollars, get all kind of staff people. You didn't read the whole manifesto? So I get the thing, and I just read the paragraph that precedes the statement. Well, I read the whole thing, but in the paragraph that precedes the statement that the CNN commentator plucked out, I'm going to read to you from this, and I want you to, in your mind, think, where else have you heard these terminologies? All right, here we go. Quote, got to get specific, make sure everybody knows what I'm talking about. Quote, the American lifestyle affords our citizens an incredible quality of life. However, our lifestyle is destroying the environment of our country. The decimation of the environment is creating a massive burden for future generations. Corporations are heeding the destruction of our environment by shamelessly over-harvesting resources. Now, I'm going to pause for a moment. Have you heard anybody that said anything like that recently? Maybe some who might be on presidential debate stages. Let me keep going. Back to this document. This has been a problem for decades. For example, this phenomenon is brilliantly portrayed in the decades-old classic, The Lorax. Watersheds around the country, especially in agricultural areas, are being depleted. Fresh water is being polluted from farming and oil drilling operations. Consumer culture is creating thousands of tons of unnecessary plastic waste and electronic waste, and recycling to help slow this down is almost non-existent. Urban sprawl creates inefficient cities, which unnecessarily destroy millions of acres of land. We even use, and he uses a word I won't use, knows how many trees worth of paper towels just to wipe water off of our hands. Everything I have seen and heard in my short life has led me to believe that the average American isn't willing to change their lifestyle, even if the changes only cause a slight inconvenience. The government is unwilling to tackle these issues beyond empty promises, since they are owned by corporations. I just want to say that I love the people of this country, but he uses expletives I won't use here. Most of y'all are just too stubborn to change your lifestyle. So the next logical step is to decrease the number of people in America using resources. If we can get rid of enough people, then our way of life can become more sustainable. Now, who in America has been talking about the U.S. government being owned by corporations and companies leaking oil drilling and over-harvesting our natural resources. Who has been talking like that? But you didn't hear anybody in the media saying that this type of rhetoric is responsible for this murderer. You know why? Because every Democrat in the country that's running for president at a minimum has been saying these exact same things. I mean, our lifestyle is destroying the environment of our country. That could have been Jay Inslee or Layawata Warren or Kamala Harris or Julian Castro. You see what I'm saying? Man, this is ridiculous. To try to project onto the president the responsibility for this? How about the dude pulling the trigger is responsible for pulling the trigger? I'm just saying this is insane. So I'm sharing this with you because I'm showing you these people have literally surgically removed portions of this manifesto to create the narrative that they want. You could have easily plucked out those quotes that I just read to you and said that he was inspired by democratic socialists to do the killing. And I'm just, how else do you take that? Other than these people are intentionally misleading the American populace for their own political agenda. Now, there's no need to hide and lie about anything. I think we have to talk about, man, this dude is a white supremacist. Based on what we have, the evidence that we have before us, that is what motivated him. But you're going to ignore this part too? Dude's also seem to be a radical environmentalist. Seem to be the type of environmentalist saying the exact same things that Layawata and company are saying. And that, ladies and gentlemen, hopefully conveys to you the absolute exercise of futility, or dare I say, the deceptive exercise to try to connect national figures to what this dude is doing. This is ridiculous. I'll move on from that. Oh, and let me play this too, because I know people are going to act like this didn't happen, so I want to play it so you can hear it. In addition to the additional remarks that I played, President Trump came out and very directly condemned white supremacy. Please play clip number 5.
The shooter in El Paso posted a manifesto online consumed by racist hate. In one voice, our nation must condemn racism, bigotry, and white supremacy. These sinister ideologies must be defeated. Hate has no place in America. Hatred warps the mind, ravages the heart, and devours the soul. We have asked the FBI to identify all further resources they need to investigate and disrupt hate crimes and domestic terrorism, whatever they need.
So the president, you heard him in his own voice, literally said, in one voice, our nation must condemn racism, bigotry, and white supremacy. Now, they're going to act like he didn't say that. Said it directly. Went on to say that hatred has no place in America. Hatred warps the mind, ravages the heart, and devours the soul. He then went on to explain in his remarks, or to further articulate, that the FBI will be given all the resources that are necessary to uproot domestic terrorism. Now, I'm sharing that with you because I know the talking snake media is not going to give this coverage because they are invested in presenting a narrative about the president because, to be frank, that's all they have in hopes of trying to beat him in 2020. They don't have a substantive policy-based platform to challenge him with, so they want to try to beat him with that. So I'm sharing that so you can know and hear it with your own ears that the president referred to it as domestic terrorism. The president condemned white supremacy flat out, no equivocation whatsoever, and is further committed to providing all of the resources necessary to the FBI to thwart domestic terrorism. All right, moving on. Next, oh man, I'm running out of time. I don't know if I'll get to do this. Well, I'll do it this way. There was most of the conversation over the weekend focused, unfortunately, on, and part of it was because the things that happened in El Paso, the tragedy there happened first. And then the tragedy in Ohio occurred. And thankfully, the police officers in Dayton, Ohio were close enough to the scene that they were able to respond to this active shooter in less than a minute. That is phenomenal. I mean, unfortunately, at least 9 people were killed. The murderer in Ohio killed even his own sister. His own sister was among the slain there. And law enforcement said he began shooting from outside of, I think it was a bar. And the law enforcement said had he made entree into that bar shooting the way he was, the death toll would have been far worse than it was. He had over 20 people who were injured there. But within 30 seconds of the murderer there open fire in Ohio, the police officers were there and they were able to take him down. 6 police officers responded. They shot him dead on the scene. So one thing I am grateful for is that law enforcement was close enough to respond to the active shooter there to where the carnage wasn't worse than it was. But the tragedy was horrible, man. More on the other side of the break here on the Hamilton Corner.
Hi, I'm Jan Harper. If you're a pastor's wife, come be encouraged and renewed as we talk about the challenges and stresses unique to pastors and their wives.
The AFA Pastors and Wives Fishbowl Retreat is coming October 8th through 10th to Linden Valley Conference Center in Linden, Tennessee. The retreat is 3 days and 2 nights of relaxation and building relationships. Our hosts will be Pastor Bert Harper, Director of Marriage, Family, and Pastoral Ministries, and co-host of Exploring the Word on AFR, and his wife, Jan. And our special speakers will be J.J. Jasper and Abraham Hamilton III. Lodging, meals, and materials are included in your registration. But hurry, space is limited. Register today by calling 800-326-4543 extension 300. That's 800-326-4543 extension 300 or at repairingthefoundations.net.
The AFA Pastors and Wives Fishbowl Retreat. We'd love to see you there.
Kissing dating, wife, and Jesus goodbye. This is David Wheaton, host of the Christian Worldview. In the late 90s and 2000s, Joshua Harris became the face of the courtship movement after writing his best-selling book, I Kissed Dating Goodbye. Harris went on to marry and father 3 children and pastor a prominent church. But in recent years, after further theological schooling, Harris disavowed his popular book. But even bigger shocks came recently when he announced he is getting a divorce, followed by saying he is no longer a Christian. This is a cautionary reminder of what the Bible exhorts in 1 Timothy. Fight the good fight, keeping faith and a good conscience, which some have rejected and suffered shipwreck in regard to their faith. Hear more at thechristianworldview.org and then tune in this weekend for part 2.
Listen to The Christian Worldview with David Wheaton, Saturday mornings at 8 Central on American Family Radio.
Fox News Commentary with Todd Starnes.
Hello, Americans. Understanding what happened over the weekend. That story next. I have a lot to say about the weekend massacres in El Paso and Dayton, Ohio. I will address those issues over the next few days. Charles Ramsey, the former Philadelphia police commissioner, was a guest on CNN. He rebuked those who offer thoughts and prayers in the aftermath of a tragedy. He said that if thoughts and prayers worked, mass shootings would have been resolved a long time ago. Well, that's simply not true. There are some very bad people in this nation. Evil is all around us. It's always been that way. It's just been amplified by social media and Hollywood and, yes, the video game industry. I'm not casting blame. I'm just stating a fact. Our culture glorifies violence. The truth is, we don't have a gun problem in America. We have a sin problem. And the reason why we pray is because when everything else is lost, prayer, it's all we've got. I'm Todd Starnes.
That's your Fox News Commentary.
The Hamilton Quarter podcast and 1-minute commentaries are available at afr.net. Back to the Hamilton Quarter on American Family Radio.
Welcome back to the Hamilton Corner here on American Family Radio. We will open the phone lines this segment, but I wanted to give you some information that I know the talking snakes are not reporting, because as the events of the weekend unfolded, almost all of the mainstream media attention was based on what happened in El Paso, but not hardly any conversation about the murderer in Ohio. And I agree that it's still early. There's still investigations to take place. That's something I continuously emphasize on the air. But not even a deep dive, right? This isn't like some high level, FBI investigation. The murderer in Ohio, who also murdered his own sister. And let me say this, the phone number to call if you'd like to join the program. The main thing I'm discussing today are these horrendous events over the weekend, the mass shootings. And if you'd like to offer some comments on that, you are welcome to do so. The number to call is 888-589-8840. The number again is 888-589-8840. And I began the show by discussing the scripture in Matthew 24, verse 12. Said, when lawlessness increases, the love of men wax cold. The love of many waxes cold. And we're witnessing that play out right before our very eyes. And I think it's worth it for you. I won't spoil it for you, but read all of Matthew 24 to see what the Lord has revealed to us in that passage when we see the increase of lawlessness and the love of many waxing cold. But going back to the murderer in Ohio, he kills his own sister. What the talking snakes wouldn't reveal is right off the bat, this dude was a supporter of Antifa. That group that likes to bash people in the heads, that feels like violence is a useful political tool, that many, like Don Lemon and others are talking about, they're just peaceful protesters who only respond when provoked. That's just a lie. See, remember Antifa? He described himself as a leftist and a Satanist. Talks about worshiping Satan. Yeah. So why wouldn't they talk about that? Because folks, this is like this, the phrase beating a dead horse. This horse is so dead. But I feel like it's important to continue to present this to you because we have people who have platforms and who are invested in not informing you, but in manipulating you to form you, to form you, to form your sentiment, to form your ideas, to form your understanding, to make you agree with them, to make you believe what they believe. And I'm just sick of the foolishness. I'm sick of the manipulation. I'm sick of the people who are easily manipulated by this stuff. And it's utterly ridiculous. Utterly ridiculous. Transition a little bit before we get to the calls. And again, the number if you want to join the program is 888-589-8840. The number again is 888-589-8840. And I want you to hear this because a lot of people, what I'm about to share, they don't believe this stuff is real. Over the weekend, in addition to that news, the Democratic Socialists of America had their national convention in Georgia. And about, according to reports, 1,500 people showed up. Now, y'all can say these people don't want socialism. They had a national convention where they had 1,500 people show up in Georgia. Now, some of the stuff I'm going to tell you is funny. An initial presentation, this is funny to hear. But it's also sad and concerning at the same time. When I came across this, I was laughing at first, and I was like, wait a minute. This kind of is not funny. So I'm going to play some audio for you from the Democratic Socialists of America's National Convention. The first part you're going to hear is a man who identifies himself as James Jackson from Sacramento, California. Then he tells you what pronouns he goes by. And he appeals to the chairman of the Democratic Socialists of America's convention to get the attendees to stop whispering because he's subject to sensory overload. Yeah. See, can't make this stuff up. Then, I wish you could watch the video. Because while he's talking, he makes the tragic error of referring to the attendees as guys. And then one man comes behind, says, "Sir, please stop using gender language." Oh, yeah. You have to hear this for yourself. Mr. Tross, if you will, sir, would you please play clip number 1?
Quick point of privilege. Quick point of personal privilege.
Yes.
Guys, first of all, James Jackson, Sacramento, he, him. I just want to say, can we please keep the chatter to a minimum? I'm one of the people who's very, very prone to sensory overload. There's a lot of whispering and chatter going on. It's making it very difficult for me to focus. Please, can we just, I know we're all fresh and ready to go, but can we please just keep the chatter to a minimum? It's affecting my ability to focus. Thank you.
Thank you, comrade. Okay, is there a speaker against name, chapter, pronoun?
Point of personal privilege.
Yes.
Please do not use gendered language to address everyone.
Please. Folks, these are the socialists. And the one thing you'll notice, you're going to hear it again. Everybody refers to one another as comrade. Don't you like that? Comrade. No, I thought you didn't want to be who refers to themselves as comrade, folks? Communists. Marx in them. But wait, there's more. Mr. James Jackson, he, him. Man, go sit. He, him. These people. I'm just going to play it. Listen to clip number 2.
Quick point of privilege once again. Hi, James Jackson, Sacramento DSA, he, him. I have already asked people to be mindful of the chatter of their comrades who are sensitive to sensory overload, and that goes double for the heckling and the hissing. It is also triggering to my anxiety. Like, the be comradely isn't just for, let's keep things civil or whatever. It's so that people aren't going to get triggered and so that it doesn't affect their performance as a delegate, okay? Your need to express yourself is important, but your need to express yourself should not trump or over,
Dude's so fragile, he can't handle whispering. And this is not a joke, folks. This is real. This really, really happened. But now I'm going to get a little bit serious. Because this last piece I'm going to play for you from their convention, one of the attendees was proposing a measure to stop referring to them as democratic socialists. He was arguing, I understand the strategy in putting Democrat in front of our socialism, but there's a potential for us to lose track of where we're really trying to go if we keep using Democrat in front of socialists. Listen to clip number 3.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sam Lewis, he, him. I'm from the New York City DSA chapter. This very simple amendment is to strike the language about forming an independent party. I want, in conversation with the authors of the proposal since, I think we're all in agreement that we do want to build a mass organization, political organization of the working class that vies for state power. So it's not an attempt to get rid of that shared goal. The problem with the language, as I see it, is that it counterposes forming an independent working class party with the tactical use of the Democratic line. So it's basically saying, in the future, we will break with our tactical use of the Democratic line. I think many of us have an agnostic position on that question, right? We want to behave in the most strategic way as class politics in this country develops. We don't want to commit to what has historically been a failed strategy in the United States of forming a third-party ballot line. So I consider this a friendly debate. I will be voting for the proposal whether or not this passes, but I think it's important to discuss.
And I know in the middle of all the gobbledygook, it might have been hard to grasp, but if you watch the floor debates, What he is talking about is we don't want to present the idea that we will potentially break off into our own party. Because right now within the Democratic Party, obviously, there's a struggle between the socialists and the ones who don't want to admit that they're socialists. I guess I'll describe it that way. And so something at this national convention, we're saying, well, let's just keep the Democratic moniker with socialists for now. And then once we've gotten most of the power, we can then break off. He's like, no, let's not do that. Let's just be socialists now. Just wanted to let you know that all happened over the weekend. And with that, we will go to the phone lines. We will start in Texas, where Jack is on the line. Jack, thank you for calling the Hamilton Corner. Welcome to the program.
Yes, this is Jack. Thank you for taking time to talk to me. I was hoping that y'all would refer to the manifesto differently, maybe as the documented evidence of the man's malicious intent. And so, anyway.
What is your reasoning behind that, Jack? I think I understand what you're saying, but I just wanted to give you time opportunity.
Just not to make that this man has authored a manifesto. In other words, it's more, I want it to be viewed as the evidence that will be used to show his intent.
But I'm still not understanding what's your concern with the phrase manifesto?
Oh, it's just to make it appear that he's authored something worthy of reading.
Got it. Jack, thank you for your call. Yeah, you make that's a good point, Jack. That is a good point. And, there are some who are even saying that they don't know if he authored it or not. That's why I said purported. But your point is well taken. Thank you for that, for your call and your comments. Let's go next to Ohio, where Carlos is on the line. Carlos, thank you for calling the Hamilton Corner. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, George. Mr. Hamilton, I love your program, brother. Thank you. I'm praying for you that God will keep you going forward strong like you have been doing. Thank you for your work.
Oh, thank you for the prayers, Carlos. I absolutely appreciate that. Go right ahead, sir.
Now, the thing that I wanted to ask you, don't you think it's hypocrisy for some of the runners for presidents like Booker from New Jersey, who is using profanity language to tell the president about the mass shooting while we have children being aborted by thousands every day? Don't you think that's a big hypocrisy?
Yes. I think it is a robust and disgusting hypocrisy that reveals the reality that many of these people don't care a hill of beans about people being killed in our country. I know that might be too hard for some people to swallow, but I remember, and I played on this program when I almost said something I shouldn't say. Kamala Harris came out talking about it should be unconscionable for us as a civil society to treat innocent children the way we do. And I said, wait a minute. I told my wife, what did she say? We have a little thing I can rewind. I said, rewind, that's what. I had to pick my jaw up off the floor. I said, woman, the nerve of you. As Carlos said, thousands every day in this country. And she was responding to Parkland. She said, we will continue to allow our children to be subject to this senseless violence. What? Are you kidding me, man? This is utterly ridiculous. And Cory Booker, man, listen. Stevie Wonder can see Cory Booker figured in a $2 bill. This is the most contrived person I ever seen in my life. I mean, Ray Charles can see it. This is insane. And let me go to the next call before I say something I'm not supposed to say. We go next to Missouri, where George is on the line. George, thank you for calling the Hamilton Corner. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for doing what you're doing. Yeah, it's the same old corruption. It's the same old players. And just like that, the comrade thing, where did they get that from? They got that from the Obama administration with comrades. And where did they get that from? They got that from the Russians. And who are all the same old players? If the Democrats would get up off of their hands, start passing some good legislation, and building a wall and helping President Trump out and doing the right thing, a lot of this stuff, and quit the bickering and start doing something. If you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem.
Well said, George. I'm going to try to squeeze one more in. Gerard in Texas, you have 10 seconds. Gerard, go.
Hey, yeah, I just wanted to make a point. Appreciate everything you do. You had mentioned about people on platforms, social media, having a voice. If we want to speak loud and clear, we need to do it with our pocketbooks. And I think some of these guys on network television, when you pay for a cable subscription, you're funding MSNBC, CNN, all this nonsense. We need to do without television and hit them in the pocketbook. If we think we got a voice on Twitter or Facebook.
Got to leave it right there, Gerard. Thank you all for tuning in to the program. Y'all have a wonderful day. God bless you.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.